That first night after learning my diagnosis, I sat by the window, staring at the yellow hospital lights reflecting off raindrops clinging to the glass. I thought about my wife, about the happy years we'd shared. I remembered her passing, how I hadn't been able to say goodbye. I wondered, maybe it's time for me to go too. But then, the fear of death welled up and seized every fiber of my being. I didn't want to leave this world, didn't want to leave the ones I loved behind. My name is John Miller, and I am 73 years old. The story I'm about to tell you is not just a journey of fighting cancer, but also a journey of rediscovering the meaning of life, of finding light in the darkest days of my existence. I live in a small town in Vermont, where the maples turn the sky crimson every fall, and the winters are bone-chilling but gentle in their own way, especially on mornings when fresh snow blankets the porch outside. All my life, I worked in a humble watch repair shop that my father left behind. I raised 2 children and loved my wife for 50 blissful years, until she passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack when I was 67. After my wife died, I lingered in solitude in our rickety wooden house. Every morning, I'd brew a cup of coffee and turn on the radio to listen to the jazz music my wife had always loved. It was my way of living with the memories, keeping my wife close despite her absence. In those days, I started to feel my body growing weary, plagued by a persistent cough and unexplained weight loss. I thought I was simply aging. No one can avoid the aches and illnesses of old age. Until one day, I collapsed in my kitchen. My daughter Emily rushed me to the hospital, trembling with fear. There were needles, machines, and a barrage of test results piling up. I only remember the doctor coming in, sitting down next to my bed, his eyes filled with concern. "We've found that you have stage 3 lung cancer." My heart stopped. I had never imagined my life would end this way, in a cold hospital room, plugged into tubes and wires. The days that followed were filled with despair. Emily wept often. My son David flew in from California, gripped my hand tightly, his eyes showing fear and helplessness I had never seen in him before. I saw panic in my children's eyes, and all I felt inside was darkness. That first night after learning my diagnosis, I sat by the window, staring at the yellow hospital lights reflecting off raindrops clinging to the glass. I thought about my wife, about the happy years we'd shared. I remembered her passing, how I hadn't been able to say goodbye. I wondered, maybe it's time for me to go too. But then, the fear of death welled up and seized every fiber of my being. I didn't want to leave this world, didn't want to leave the ones I loved behind. The following days brought chemotherapy, the horror of which I could never have imagined. Each session drained the life out of me, leaving me nauseous and aching, my hair falling out in clumps. There were days when the world spun, and I wished I could sleep and never wake up. Yet Emily and David never left my side. They took turns telling stories, reading to me, even playing chess with me on the edge of my hospital bed. One afternoon, after I collapsed from exhaustion, Emily gently held my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad, you're the strongest man I know. Please don't give up, for me, for our family, please." At that moment, I realized I wasn't just fighting for myself, but for everyone who loved me too. The months that followed dragged on, but it was during this time I learned to look back on my life. I started keeping a journal, recording every emotion, every fear, every flicker of hope that sparked inside me. I wrote about childhood memories, about my wife and children. I realized that even if I had to face death, I wanted to go as someone who had lived fully and loved wholeheartedly. I made friends with other patients in the ward. There was Martha, an elderly lady fighting cancer as well, who always told jokes to make us laugh after the agony of chemo. There was Bill, a former Marine, who taught me breathing techniques to help with the pain. We cheered each other on, offering support whenever someone wanted to give up. I never thought I'd make new friends at this age, but I found them in a place nobody wants to be. When my body was almost spent, the doctors suggested a new drug, one that had only just been FDA approved. It felt like the last ray of hope. My family debated the risks, Emily worried about the side effects. But I decided to try. Not because I was reckless, but because I wanted to say I gave everything I had. The new therapy ripped my body apart, but miraculously, after 2 months, my test results started to improve. The tumors shrank, the pain faded. The doctors called me a small miracle. Emily hugged me, sobbing like a child. David laughed, misty-eyed. "Dad, you never do anything halfway, not even fighting cancer, huh?" During this time, I learned the true value of every small moment. A cup of morning coffee, birdsong in the garden, the gentle touch of my daughter's hand on my forehead. These simple things were miracles. I began to cherish every day I could wake up and see the faces of the ones I loved. Perhaps the strangest thing is, the closer I came to death, the more I could feel the meaning of life. I remember the first time, after 6 months of treatment, the doctor allowed me to walk outside in the hospital garden. The sky was clear. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut grass. My steps were shaky, David steadying me as I felt the sun's warmth on my gaunt face. My heart pounded with excitement, as if I were a child discovering the world for the first time. Some of my friends in the ward passed away. Some kept fighting. Every time someone didn't return, I grieved. But I reminded myself, live for those who can't. I wrote them little letters and slipped them under their pillows. Small tokens to say they were not alone, that my memory of them lives on. I started talking with other cancer patients through online support groups for seniors. I shared my story, from a stubborn, despairing old man to someone who learned to let go of fear, to accept the limits of illness, and to find reasons to keep going. With each message I received, I knew that somewhere, someone else was sitting in the dark, with only the tiniest spark of hope. And maybe my words could help them get up and keep fighting. Once, a woman around my age from Florida wrote to me, "John, because of your story, I've decided not to refuse treatment. I think I'll try again, because I still have grandchildren. I still have a husband by my side." Reading those words, I knew that all the pain I went through had a purpose. They helped me reach the hearts that most needed lifting. The day the doctor told me my tumors had stopped growing, I saw both surprise and joy in his eyes. My hands trembled as I held the test results. Emily hugged me, whispering, "We did it, Dad." But I know, I didn't win this fight alone. I was supported by an army of love, from the patient nurses who took care of me every day, the dedicated doctors, to each family member, friend, and even strangers on the internet. I began to return to normal life, though not completely as before, but I felt each moment much more deeply. Each morning, I wake early, brew coffee, and sit on the porch watching the sun filter through the trees. I started repairing the old clock my wife cherished, its hour and minute hands moving slowly, reminding me that time is a precious gift, not to be wasted on dwelling in the past or fearing the future. I spend more time with my children now, walking with David, listening to Emily tell stories about her children's school days, and visiting the cemetery to sit quietly by my wife's grave, telling her about the miraculous journey I've been through. Beside her tombstone, I smile and say, "My dear, I'm still here, and I've learned that every minute spent with those we love is the greatest miracle of all." I know that life and death are separated by only the thinnest line. Perhaps one day the tumors will return, and my body won't be able to fight anymore. But now I'm no longer afraid. I've realized the most important thing isn't how long I live, but how I live, how I love, what I share with those around me. I tell my story to other elderly people in town. Some ask me how to avoid despair. I tell them to allow themselves to be weak, to fall, but then to get up again for their loved ones, for themselves, to keep hoping, even if it's just a tiny light in the darkness. Because I've seen miracles happen in the very moment when I thought there was nothing left to hold on to. I still keep a journal, partly to preserve memories, partly to express gratitude for each day I'm still breathing. I attend cancer patient gatherings, sharing experiences, giving hope to those who have just received bad news. I've realized that when we share our stories, we not only help others find strength, but also rediscover our own. Recently, I've been watching my granddaughter when Emily is at work. The little blonde girl often asks me about my battle with cancer, about why her grandfather can be so cheerful despite once being so weak, so sad. I hold her close and tell her that Grandpa had wonderful friends, a family who never left his side, and that he learned the greatest lesson of all, to be grateful for life, even in its darkest hours. I never thought I would live to see this day, sitting here, writing these words to tell you about my journey. If you are also in a dark night, please remember, there is always light waiting on the other side. That light may be small and distant, but if you have enough faith, enough patience, one day it will spread warmth, enough to illuminate even the darkest corners of your soul. I don't romanticize the fight against cancer, because I understand the pain, the despair, the feeling of helplessness that gnaws at you every day. There were mornings I woke up nauseous, too weak to lift a hand. Times I cried quietly because I missed my wife, because I thought I would soon leave everyone behind. But I learned to accept my pain, my fear, to accept that there would be days when I just wanted to give up. And yet, in my weakest moments, I found my inner strength. It wasn't extraordinary courage or bravery, but the patience to gather tiny slivers of hope, piecing them together like fragments of an old mirror, so that each day I could look at myself and say, "I've lived another day, and I will live tomorrow too." After recovery, I joined a volunteer group at the hospital, becoming a storyteller for newly admitted patients. I tell them about my days of despair, about the first time I went outside after chemotherapy, about my daughter's smile, about friends who have passed away. I tell them about pain that seemed endless, about moments when I wanted to give up, but then overcame thanks to a kind word, a held hand, or simply because I missed a family dinner. Some listeners cry, some laugh, some remain silent for a long time before asking me the first question, after days of curling up under the covers. "Are you afraid of dying?" I answer honestly, "Yes, very much. But I'm even more afraid that I won't have time to tell everyone how much I love them, how grateful I am for this life. You know, after everything, I don't think I truly defeated disease. Cancer might return, my body will eventually grow old and fail. But I have been given something miraculous. The opportunity to realize that the most important thing is knowing how to love, how to be thankful, how to appreciate, and how to share. I'm no longer just a watch repairman who lives amid slowly rotating hour and minute hands. I've become a guardian of moments. A moment with my daughter, a moment with my grandchild, a moment writing in my journal, a moment sitting with memories of my wife in the long winter, a moment listening to music, smelling flowers on the porch, feeling a gentle breeze. In each of these moments, I live more fully than in any time before. If I have one message for someone facing despair, it would be, don't be afraid to be weak. Don't hide your pain. Don't force yourself to be optimistic all the time. Allow yourself to be real, to be tired, to lean on someone. And one day, you'll find yourself stronger than you ever thought possible. And most importantly, let love, no matter how small, become the flame that warms your heart in the darkest night. Now, as I write these lines in my small house overlooking the brilliant autumn maples, I don't know how much longer I have to live. But I know I will live fully, love deeply, tell stories to souls that need comforting, and enjoy every day with my children and grandchildren. If there is one miracle I've received, it's the miracle of sharing. Because no one walks this journey alone. Everyone needs a hand to hold, someone to lift them up, someone to give them faith. As I once received, I hope to pass on to those who come after me. Thank you for listening to my story. The story of an ordinary old man who once knew the depths of fear, who once wanted to give up, but who found hope again through the love of those around him, to continue on a new journey, a journey of gratitude, of sharing, of unconditional love. I am John Miller. I once had cancer, and I lived, truly lived, moment by moment, through love, gratitude, and the small light of hope in my darkest days.